So after the horrific events of the Overhaul arc and the trauma it placed upon her, Eri would go on to effectively be adopted by the one person who could handle her quirk due to their own, Aizawa Sensei, otherwise known as Eraserhead. Now, as a lot of us know, at this point in the manga, a whole lot of time has passed since the Overhaul arc, to the point where while living with Aizawa Sensei, Eri has gone from being 6 years old to 7 years old. And over the course of that time, a whole lot of good has entered Eri's life. A life that was previously very tragic is now rather remarkable, to the point where we can now say that she has been emotionally stabilized by being provided a proper life. And so for her, UA is a place that she can actually call home. And both the students and staff of UA have now become her family. But of course, Eri is here for a reason. There is a reason that they couldn't just give her up for adoption now that she had no family of her own. Her quirk, Rewind, it is dangerous and it is unruly. And so they have been trying their best to get it under control. And up until this point, suppression has been their primary goal. And so Aizawa Sensei has been keeping a watchful eye on her all this time, and so this is a full-time job for him on top of everything that he already does. Now, on account of their suppression of her quirk, her horn has diminished in size, and when it is large, that's when you know it is going haywire, it is very dangerous, and when it is small, it is far less of a threat and people can actually come in contact with her. But now that they have stabilized her mentally and they don't have a fear of her going crazy because of her mind and her trauma from before, Aizawa is ready to take things to the next level and he is confident that he can train Eri. And so, Eri's training, her quirk training, is about to begin. And this is substantial information. Why? Because Eri's quirk Rewind is insane. It is really powerful. Actually, one of the most powerful quirks we have ever seen in the series and has so much potential to the point where you could even liken it to a secret weapon of the heroes at this point. She is the future. If this kid can actually evolve and become a reliable ally or combatant, they are set. They are really good for the future, and the future of heroics and society could be in a very good place. However, I don't believe the decision to begin her training was only based on positive factors. In fact, Eri's quirk seems like it is becoming increasingly difficult for her to manage to control because of course she is aging up, she is growing, and so her quirk in of itself is growing alongside her. But even still, at just 7 years old, Eri is getting proper training from a pro hero at UA, the greatest hero academy in the nation. That is so good. That is so amazing. Forget an entrance exam. To them, she is a prodigy worthy of tutelage here and now. What's more is that of course we could have expected Aizawa Sensei to play a role in her training, but to know that All Might, the former symbol of peace and #1 hero, has joined in aiding her along is incredible and adds a whole new layer of emphasis onto this case. Now, recently it has come to our attention that All Might does feel a way about Deku's progression, and that he sort of feels unnecessary to Deku's journey at this point, as Deku has progressed to immeasurable levels that he could not have ever predicted himself when he decided to make him his successor. But since Deku doesn't really need him to hold his hand anymore or to be his hero, he's gonna be there for Eri. And although he doesn't have One for All in his possession anymore and he is a frail human, he will be able to pass on some knowledge to her. Now, of course, All Might's field of expertise is not quirk knowledge. He doesn't really study quirks or anything like that like Deku might. And that makes sense because he kind of just charged through any threat or force that was in his way as a hero. But now I feel like what he will bring to the table for Eri and her training will be more moral based. As this person, this hero, whose presence alone managed to keep Japan stabilized for several decades, he has to be the pinnacle of heroic ethics. Like, once again, Eri's backstory is immensely tragic. She was effectively killed several times over and extracted and experimented on like a guinea pig by Overhaul, this person that her family had entrusted her to. And it's backstories like that that make for some of the most disturbed and dangerous villains in existence, and so they are trying to deter that to the best of their ability, which is why they took so much time to stabilize her personality and get her feeling good about life. And as we saw in the Overhaul arc, Eri is a very sweet child. She is someone who thinks of the feelings of others. When everyone else was going out of their way to save her and risk their lives, she felt compelled to do her best to find her way to them. And when she first went to Deku seeking aid and help, she backed off because she was afraid that he would die. So there is a heroic spirit within this kid. It's just a matter of how they will manage to cultivate that inner flame. But one thing worth pondering is how exactly they will go about training this quirk. Rewind is a very difficult quirk to train simply because it works exclusively on organic life. And so to conduct that sort of training, there has to be a sort of risk taken on life. And of course, as heroes, that is not something that you would readily do. And so once again, I'm imagining that by being there, All Might would be the one to set those boundaries for her and sort of establish a proper and improper use of her quirk. And so with all that in mind, I believe that the safest way to conduct her training would be to have her use Rewind on plant life exclusively for the time being. That way, it's less likely that someone will get hurt and PETA won't be knocking at the door. However, this is manga, and training is never that linear. We are going to run into some road bumps. We are going to run into some obstacles or mishaps. And what I have in mind would be the accidental rewind of All Might. Now, the reason I believe this to be plausible is due to the fact that Horikoshi has entertained our speculation and curiosity in the past, especially recently, with Monoma of Class 1B and his copy quirk being attempted on both Deku and Eri. And so I'd imagine that the curiosity of what would happen if Eri were to rewind All Might could find its way into the story officially through this training. Now, as for whether or not this could return All Might to his glory is questionable to me. I feel like narratively that can't happen just because we cannot have All Might at the forefront anymore. We cannot rely on All Might. There is a reason we have been upgrading all these characters, these students, and getting them ready for this impending war. So we can't get All Might back at his peak. So although I'm unsure of the logistics as to why it wouldn't work out, it just can't, narratively. However, I wouldn't be opposed to All Might regaining some vigor and vitality, maybe some muscle, since he's been training so damn hard. Maybe he reverts to a physical state reminiscent of when he lost his master. Honestly, with this quirk, so many crazy things can happen, so this isn't out of the realm of possibility. And of course, once Eri does master her quirk, the question of whether or not she can return Mirio's quirk to him will come up, of course, because we are all waiting on that. We are all waiting on the return of Lemillion. And on that note, with our new time skip of a few months, as a third-year student, Mirio should be graduating from UA High School because they are, of course, Japanese students, so there are only 3 years of high school. So the question of whether or not she can actually do this for him is only becoming more pressing at this point. But with a time skip, that means that Eri's training has been going on for months at this point. She has been training with Aizawa and All Might for months, which in terms of immediate gratification is amazing for us because we get to see the fruits of her labor and their efforts almost immediately. As soon as she comes back, it's going to be essentially a new Eri. But I think it's important for us to keep in mind that Eri is only 7 years old. She is not going to have training on par with the first year students of UA. So with only a few months under her belt, the results of her training may not be all too apparent or crazy, but if she can at the very least control her quirk better than she can now, or even find a controlled application of it that she can manage, that would be more than enough. Guys, let me know what you might be thinking when it comes to Aries training, and if you are excited, and if the presence of All Might gets you even more pumped. There is really a whole lot of greatness coming our way from My Hero Academia right now, so when it comes to some of the best My Hero content on the platform, Plot Armor's got you covered. As always, I am Slice of Otaku. Thank you all so much for watching, and have an awesome day. I love you.